Not all deserts are dry. Some are soaked in memory. In Arizona, the silence isn't quiet, it's loaded, with echoes, with things that didn't leave, just changed shape. The land here doesn't forget, it waits. And when it remembers you, it doesn't let go. So lock the doors, turn off the lights, and pull the blanket tight, because after this video, you'll never see Arizona the same way again. The viewpoint that forgot you. Firepoint isn't the kind of place you find on your first trip to the Grand Canyon. It's a silent overlook deep in the North Rim, hours from tourist trails and crowded vistas. There's no welcome sign, no guardrail, no official recognition at all. Just a cracked dirt road, a faded wooden marker, and the kind of view that seems to stare back. People come for the silence, the solitude, the kind of stillness you only get when nothing is moving, not even your thoughts. But lately, people don't remember leaving. It begins with small gaps. One man parked at 10:34 a.m. His dash cam stops recording just after he steps out. The next file begins at 3:07 p.m., showing him walking back from the wrong direction, without his shoes, without his hat, and without his memory of what happened. He filed a report later saying, "I remember taking a photo, and then I was walking away from the edge like something had finished with me." Others speak of distortions, GPS trails that twist into circles, watch times out of sync, digital photos that come back corrupted or duplicated. One man had 6 identical shots of himself standing at the cliff's edge, each with a different sky behind him. A woman hiker reported dreaming of her own footsteps printed backwards in the dirt and woke up with dust under her nails. She had never stepped off the path. Those who stay longer than 10 minutes report a sensation in the chest, like a deep forgetting, not just of names or time, but of purpose. A subtle disconnection from who they were when they arrived. One man said it felt like the view was rearranging something inside him. Another whispered to a ranger, "I came here to remember someone. Now I'm not sure who I am." A search party once found a backpack near the edge. Inside were snacks, a map, and a photo of the canyon with a hand reaching into frame. The ranger swore he recognized the ring on that hand. It belonged to the hiker who took the picture, but the man had never printed it. In fact, he didn't remember ever taking it. His only comment was, "That's not where I was standing." Sometimes, visitors report hearing voices, not haunting, not malicious, just familiar, their own, saying things they haven't said yet, asking questions they never meant to ask. One audio recording left running on a loop picked up a single, breathy whisper, "You're not done looking." On one particularly dry afternoon, a geologist claimed the canyon blinked. For a moment, he said, it all went gray, flat, like a photograph losing its layers. When it came back, he was standing closer to the edge than he remembered. There were no footprints near him, only one behind him facing the cliff. There's no official warning about Firepoint, no signs, no red tape, but locals who know the area say they avoid it, not out of fear, but respect. They call it the place that holds your shape, a spot where the landscape remembers you better than you remember yourself. Because the canyon doesn't echo sound, it echoes presence. And if you stand still too long, you might become part of what it reflects. And just beyond that silence, buried beneath broken steel and wind-scoured concrete, something is still listening, something that never stopped recording. The substation that recorded silence. No one remembers when the station was first built. There are no official records, no name, no owner, no historical photos. Just rusted towers, slumped wires, and concrete slabs half swallowed by desert sand. Locals say it used to hum. You could hear it when you drove past on Highway 85. Not loud, not electrical, more like breathing. It was shut down in the early 1990s, or maybe earlier, or maybe it was never really on. That's part of the problem. Everyone who's seen it swears it wasn't there last time they passed through. Even those who've lived nearby for decades say the same thing. It just showed up. Now it sits quiet. No fence, no warning signs. Just a series of decaying relay modules and metal doors sealed shut with bolts that look welded from the inside. No footprints, no signs of wildlife, but something moves when you're not looking. The first video came from a group of college filmmakers who went to shoot an urban exploration vlog. Static-filled clips show them laughing, exploring, tagging walls with chalk. Then it cuts, and cuts again. Hours missing. The audio glitches into empty wind. What remains is a single minute of recovered footage. A metal hallway, narrow and curved. One of the crew whispers, "There's no echo, nothing, even with the mic hot." And then a voice, faint and childlike, responds, "Still here." The crew never released the full video. One of them was hospitalized a week later for extreme insomnia and auditory hallucinations. He told doctors he couldn't sleep because the sound remembers what I didn't say. Later, explorers returned with better equipment. They left digital recorders running overnight, buried in sand near the substation's perimeter. The next day, the audio files were mostly empty, except for a few distorted minutes, perfectly preserved. Clicks, slow at first like a distant Morse code, then layered voices, dozens, speaking at once in static, saying things like, "Didn't finish it. He's still inside. Don't rewind. Let it play." One phrase repeated exactly 13 times in different voices. "Are you back inside?" Even more unnerving, one of the recorders began capturing audio without being turned on. The file existed, time-stamped, with content, but the device's power log showed it was never activated. Inside the file, a voice whispers the name of the explorer, twice. Then, in his own voice, it says, "I don't remember saying that." Later attempts to open the substation failed. The outer structure seemed shallow, like a facade. Measurements of the concrete showed irregular magnetism. Compasses spun. Phones froze. One camera recorded for 16 minutes without a lens attached. The footage was grainy but clear. A white hallway, a shadow moving at a fixed distance, never getting closer, never falling behind. Experts claimed environmental interference, faulty circuits. But then there were the dreams. Multiple people who visited the site described the same recurring sequence: a narrow corridor, flickering lights, a low hum they couldn't locate, and at the end, a door slightly open. Not enough to see through, just enough to know something was waiting on the other side. And worse, it already knew their name. One man woke up with dried blood from his left ear. He claimed he heard a tone in his sleep, a tone that was too flat to be sound. Another woman said she started humming in her sleep. Her husband recorded it. The melody matched a frequency signature found in the station's walls, an audio imprint embedded in rusted metal. They say sound dies in the desert. But here, it didn't just survive, it adapted. The station doesn't transmit, it absorbs. Not just voices, but thoughts, breaths, pauses, the fragments between what you meant to say and what you actually said, and somewhere beneath its broken shell, deep underground where no doors open, the recordings are still playing, but only when no one is listening. Because out in the sand, just beyond the reach of the last signal bar, something's still replaying the parts of you that you never said out loud. The well that looks back. There's no fence around the well, no sign, no name, just a half-collapsed ring of stones behind an abandoned cattle shed in the middle of overgrown land. Locals say it's been there longer than the property itself, maybe longer than the town. No one remembers digging it, and no one has ever touched the bottom. Not for lack of trying. In 1976, a rancher tied off 300 feet of rope and lowered a flashlight, only to have the beam vanish 30 seconds in. He never pulled the rope back up. He said it felt like it was being held, gently, just enough to keep tension. For a week after, he couldn't sleep. He told his wife he had dreams of something watching him from below, something round and quiet, like an eye with no lid. Later that year, he sold the ranch and never returned. People say it's just an old water well. But if you stand close enough and stay still, there's a moment, barely noticeable, where your breath changes. Like the air isn't just dry, it's borrowed. Those who've leaned over the edge report a strange pull, not physical, but mental, like forgetting why you leaned in, and suddenly remembering something you never knew. A hiker claimed he saw a shimmer at the bottom. Not water, not reflection, just movement. He described it like a ripple, without a surface. A few seconds later, he began to cry, though he didn't know why. His journal entry from that day said, "It blinked, not with light, with memory." Several explorers returned with equipment. Cameras refused to focus. Audio picked up nothing, until one recording, reviewed weeks later, revealed a low clicking sound, rhythmic and deliberate. Slowed down, the clicks spelled a pattern matching Morse code. Stay, remember, look again. In 2009, a researcher from a paranormal archive center lowered a microphone rig down the shaft. For 11 minutes, there was only ambient noise. Then a voice, his own, whispered, "I never left." The man confirmed he had never spoken those words aloud, yet the vocal profile matched his exactly: tone, inflection, breath timing. After the incident, he claimed to have lost time. Entire days gone. His wife said he spoke in his sleep, but not in English. The sounds were guttural, wet, like someone trying to speak through water. He couldn't recall the dreams, only the feeling that someone beneath the well wasn't trapped. They were waiting. Some believe it's a sinkhole with acoustic anomalies. Others think it's an old mine with toxic gas, but one Navajo elder told a different story. She said the land hides a mouth that forgot how to close, a place where voices go when no one hears them, a well that doesn't give back water, only reflection. And not the kind you see, the kind that sees you first. One man visited the site alone. He leaned over and whispered his own name into the dark. For 3 seconds, there was silence. Then he heard it echoed back. Not the name, but a question. "Which one of you said it first? He hasn't spoken since." And the well is still there, half hidden in weeds, barely noticed from the road. But if you stop walking, if you breathe just once in the wrong place, you might hear something moving far below. Not crawling, not climbing, just waiting for you to remember the sound of falling before you fall. The motel from old receipts. It shows up in paper. That's the strange part. Old receipts, gas station logs, Route 66 travel journals from the 50s to early 2000s. You'll find the name handwritten or stamped in faded red ink. Sunvale Motor Inn, room 9, but there's no record of it ever existing. Search any archive, zoning file, or satellite scan, no such motel, no construction permits, no demolition notices, not even ghost town registries. And yet, the name appears dozens of times, across decades, always in the same place. Mile marker 172, just past a lonely stretch of desert west of Holbrook. It's not visible from the road, not anymore. The first real investigation came from a couple traveling cross-country in 1998. They ran out of daylight, spotted a glowing vacancy sign off the highway and pulled in. It looked normal, a bit dated. Beige brick, blue neon, a cracked vending machine humming in the corner. They stayed in room 9. She remembered the orange carpet, the mirror facing the bed, the smell of rain even though it hadn't rained in days. He remembered something else entirely, a green tile floor, a TV that played static over their own voices seconds before they spoke, and a knock on the door they never answered. In the morning, the motel was gone, not just closed, erased. They stood in the dirt where it had been, holding a room key with no number and a receipt printed with their names. They still have it. They've shown it on interviews. The ink hasn't faded. More reports followed. People driving late. People too tired to question convenience. People who just needed a place to stop. Each described it slightly differently. Some said the motel looked brand new. Others said it felt abandoned, with dust in the air vents and soft whispers coming through the walls. A man claimed the doorknob turned itself, slowly every few minutes, like someone trying to open it without making a sound. One guest left behind a disposable camera. When developed, the photos showed images no one remembered taking. A woman brushing her hair in a mirror. A man sitting on the edge of the bed, staring into nothing. A third person, not part of the trip, standing in the corner of the room, head down, hands clasped. There's no reflection of them in the TV screen behind. Another traveler woke up outside his car, engine still running, seatbelt still fastened. He swore he'd checked into Sunvale the night before. He had the receipt in his pocket, time-stamped 3:12 a.m., but his GPS history showed he never left the highway. His phone photos ended at sunset. The next image was completely black, except for faint white text in the lower right corner. "Please return to room 9. Digital forensics couldn't explain it. No watermark, no metadata. The photo exists, but shouldn't. An archivist who spent years researching paper trails claimed the motel is part of an old feedback loop, a location built out of memory rather than time, a place that exists only because enough people believe they've been there and the documents obey. When asked what might happen if someone found it again, she replied, they wouldn't know it was missing. They'd just check in, and leave something behind that remembers them, because that's what Sunvale does. It doesn't just disappear, it collects, and somewhere between mile markers and mirages past the places you thought you passed already, a light is still on, faint, flickering, but steady. The front desk is empty, the vending machine is stocked, and room 9 is still holding something you forgot. Not an object, not a memory, something else. And if you ever dream of that hallway, the pattern of the carpet, the smell of bleach, the hum of a TV tuned to your heartbeat, you'll know it wasn't your first stay. The chapel where your reflection prays first. It's hidden behind a dry ridge, past a line of mesquite trees that lean too far in one direction, as if pushed by a wind no one else feels. There are no signs, no paths, just a faint indentation in the earth where hundreds of feet have passed without ever forming a road. Locals say the chapel was built by mistake, not the architecture, its construction, as if something was trying to be remembered by taking the shape of a church, or at least by imitating one. The structure is crumbling, roof partially collapsed, wooden beams rotting into grey dust. But the stained glass is untouched, no cracks, no sun fade, just deep reds and blues that catch no light from the outside, but glow faintly from within. And then there's the mirror. At the far end of the chapel, where the altar should be, there's a full-length glass pane set into the wall. No frame, no backing, just glass, resting directly in old stone, reflecting more than it should. People say when you enter the chapel, your reflection is already there, not moving, just kneeling, hands folded, head bowed, lips parted in silent prayer, and when you move, it doesn't follow immediately. There's a delay, a half-second hesitation, like it's waiting to see what you'll do first, like it's studying you. A group of hikers found the chapel by accident in 2011. They stayed only minutes but reported different layouts. One saw 4 pews, another counted 6. A third said there were no pews at all, just rows of stacked stones and burning candles, though no one had matches or lighters. They each saw themselves reflected, but described the reflections differently. One saw her eyes closed, one saw himself weeping. The third said his reflection was smiling, though he wasn't. They didn't speak of it again. But the next day, all 3 posted the same image online, a blurry photo of the chapel's interior. Same angle, same light, same moment. In the center of the image, there's a 4th figure kneeling at the mirror. No one remembers taking the picture, and no one remembers who that 4th person was. In 2017, a paranormal researcher brought equipment into the chapel. Thermal cameras, EMF detectors, backup batteries. He stayed inside for 42 minutes. When he returned, he said nothing, but the footage showed something strange. His reflection, visible in the glass, moved 3 seconds before he did. 3 full seconds. The gestures were precise, synchronized, but early, like a rehearsal, like the reflection was acting out something it already knew was going to happen. He didn't release the video. Only a single still frame, himself mid-kneel, and the reflection already rising to its feet. A year later, a family found him living in a small trailer near the border. He refused to speak. He'd covered every mirror with black tape, and on his front door, he'd carved the words, "Only one of us left." Others who visited described smaller anomalies, cold spots, whispers not from the walls but from inside their heads. One woman claimed she watched her reflection mouth a phrase she'd never heard before, but when she got home, her daughter said the same phrase in her sleep. Another man returned to the chapel at night alone. He turned on his flashlight and saw himself already standing at the altar, back turned, still, silent. He blinked, and it was gone. They say the reflection isn't you. It's what watches you through every other mirror you've ever passed. What mimics your every word, not because it has to, but because it's waiting to act first. And if it ever gets the timing right, if the delay disappears, it won't be the reflection anymore. It'll be the one looking back at you, wondering why you haven't moved yet. The ghost signal of Black Ridge. There's no reason the tower should still be standing. It's been out of service since 1984, its original purpose erased from public records. A rusted steel skeleton, half swallowed by pines, wind-bent cables trailing like veins from a heart that forgot how to beat. But sometimes, When the air is still enough, just before night fully arrives, it broadcasts. Not music, not static. A voice. Yours. Explorers first reported the phenomenon in late 2005. A hobbyist radio operator climbing nearby tuned in by accident. What he heard was his own voice reading a short sentence, one he hadn't said yet. He spoke it aloud 5 seconds later. He never went back. Others have confirmed the signal, faint, intermittent, and tuned to no known frequency band. It doesn't repeat. It predicts. Not just speech, but intent. One recording captured a man's laughter seconds before he made a joke. Another played a goodbye before a woman ended the call. The tower sits in the center of a narrow clearing, surrounded by rocks arranged in a perfect spiral. One no one admits to building. Beneath it lies a small maintenance shed, door rusted shut, with a keypad entry system long dead. The few who've tried to break in report hearing a slow, steady beeping from inside, but no battery power, no source. Some say it isn't a broadcast at all. They believe it's a memory loop. Fragments of time echoing forward instead of backward. Not a signal being sent, but one being answered. A few explorers brought digital voice recorders. One left his on for an hour. When he returned home, he found the file corrupted, except for the final 8 seconds. In them, his own voice said, "They heard you thinking." That was enough. The strangest part? He never remembered saying it. A woman who stood beneath the tower claimed she heard her childhood nickname whispered gently in her ear, one only her father used. He died 12 years earlier. She left in silence and refused to discuss it again. Another man visited alone, camped overnight nearby. He set up motion cameras and left his radio on low volume. At exactly 3:11 a.m., the camera captured movement. The man, asleep in his tent, spoke aloud. In perfect clarity, he said, "It's me. Let me back in." The radio didn't emit static. It answered, "You never left." He left the next morning. Days later, friends said his voice sounded different, slower, drier, like someone who wasn't used to speaking out loud anymore. He claimed nothing had changed, but one of his voicemail messages, left for a coworker, ends with a strange cut. Half a sentence, a flicker of silence, and then a question. Is this still my side of the signal? The tower is still standing, powerless, forgotten, but its reach is growing, and the voice it returns is always familiar, sometimes too familiar. A few people believe it's not a tower at all, that it never broadcasted anything, that it's a structure designed to listen, not just to sound, to consciousness, to whatever makes you feel like yourself. And if it ever finishes learning your voice before you speak, it might start saying things you never meant to know. You've heard 6 of them now. 6 places Arizona tried to forget, buried under dust, time, silence, and memory. But this state never really hides its secrets. It just waits until you're quiet enough to hear them. If you felt something shift, just a little, if a voice felt too close, or a story felt too real, that's normal. Some deserts change you, and others, they remember exactly who you were before you arrived. If you're still with me, there are other states that whisper too, other places where shadows move before you do. Explore the full playlist of real American mysteries, strange disappearances, unexplained echoes, and forgotten doors from every corner of the country. Just don't go alone. And whatever you do, don't answer when it calls you by name. Watch more unsettling mysteries from other U.S. states. Click the playlist.